Welcome back, everybody, to a very special episode of Seaweed Brain. Sorry to the Red Pyramid. It has been deferred again because we have pressing, exciting guests to attend to. Today, we have the amazing Jeannie, head of the hair department on the Percy Jackson TV show. So stick around.
Welcome back, Seaweed Brain listeners. Sorry to the Red Pyramid, sorry to the Kane Chronicles, sorry to Sadie Kane and Carter Kane, but like Carter said, we do have more pressing matters today because we have Jeannie Chow, head of hair for Percy Jackson and the Olympians, here to talk to us today. We are so excited to ask her all about her career and all about hair and curls and her dog, Bugsy. Thank you for joining us today, Jeannie. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. This is a really nice pleasure to be able to talk to the audience and the fans of both the books and the series. Because it's kind of nice to get some feedback as well too. I know how beloved this book series is and how important it is to translate the book into real life. So it's kind of nice to check in with people. And thanks for having me. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
I'm sure season 1 feels like a million years ago because even when we were talking to the actors like last February, they were like, oh man, season 1 was forever ago. We don't really remember anything. So we're here to jog your memory and talk about stuff that you were working on like over 2 years ago at this point.
I think so. I think we started like 2022 or something, I want to say. I can't remember. A few years ago for sure now.
And they have just wrapped work on season 2. And you guys were just in LA for the Hair and Makeup Guild Awards.
Yes.
It's been very busy past couple of months.
It has.
How was that process, wrapping everything up and then coming out to LA?
It was a little bit surreal because everything just kind of kept stacking on top of everything and just kind of the mad rush of finishing filming and getting all the last bits and pieces and the rewrites and the reshoots or whatnot. And then we also had a marketing and a gallery shoot once we wrapped. So what that means is just all the press and the media and the social clips and whatnot. So that took up another week. And then a few days later, we were all in LA celebrating our nominations for Best Hair and Makeup in a children's series. So that was really exciting and a really great way to celebrate the end of season 2. Unfortunately, we did not win, but we had some really great peers that did, and I'm glad that somebody did. But it's also just nice to be top 5,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you won in our hearts.
Thank you.
Before we ask you all kinds of specific questions about season 1, will you tell us what first got you into this really glamorous, really cool, very exciting, very mysterious job that many people probably don't even think about what it means to be a hairstylist or a key hairstylist or the head of a hair department on a TV show like this? Give us as much or as little of your entire life story as you would like to share.
Okay, and go. It is actually very mysterious. And when I got into the business, it was a bit mysterious. And I just kind of fumbled and by sheer good luck made my way into the industry. I first started hairdressing when I got out of high school. I went to hairdressing school. But prior to that, I'd always had a big love and passion for music videos, just music, fashion. So originally that's kind of where I thought my path was going to take me. But living in Vancouver, also at that time, this growing film business industry was also starting. When I was younger, I kind of always thought, my friends and I would joke around, one day I'm going to be Madonna's hair and makeup artist or something, but didn't really know how to get there or didn't even know that it was even a thing, So I just, as doors opened and having conversations with people, and then one thing led to another. And I did kind of work in fashion a little bit, in print work, but being in Canada, it's not really the fashion capital of the world, like New York, London, Paris, Milan, now Tokyo and Seoul are, the big capitals. But I also really loved music videos. And what was really cool about music videos is that they're like little short films as well. They tell the story. And so that was always really intriguing to me. I'm also an avid reader. I haven't really read a lot lately because all I do is read scripts. But I love reading as well. And I just love that concept of picking these words out of, a novel or a script. And, we use our own imagination of what these people look like or what the landscape looks like and all this kind of stuff, right? So melding all of this together kind of brought me into film and television because all of these aspects kind of come together. And I also just love the collaborative aspect as well too. I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's kind of nice to be with other like-minded people, other like-minded creative people, and together we can make something really like awesome. Like the singular artist, all the weight isn't on you, but collectively you can make something really wonderful. And I also just come from a really big family. So I think I just have this also another concept of like teamwork or working together in large groups and things like that too. So somehow I'm just kind of like, when I look back and how all these things led me into my career, it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of how naturally it kind of just wove its way in because all these elements were kind of already in my life, either just by growing up or just the things that I liked. And just really lucky and thankful to like have a job where I can be really creative and get paid for it and all those things. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I started.
Oh, that was a really great summary.
That was a lot of info there.
That was
No, I know I
great.
have so many questions for you. But I was thinking as you were talking about that team aspect and about coming from a big family that I guess in most regards being a hairstylist and working with hair is pretty solitary unless you are like working in a team on like a set and that's like a unique circumstance. Otherwise, you're pretty much kind of in your own lane.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like if you're working in a salon, you're kind of just, it's between you and your client. But working in the film and TV industry, I'm working alongside the makeup artist, working alongside the costumes department. I'm collaborating with the cast and the director and the writer of the script. Everybody has a little bit of input and trying to find, that common thread that everybody wants to create this beautiful end product. That's kind of like a secret language in itself. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like trying to decipher a code because everybody, let's just take the color red, for example. Like everybody has a different shade of red when you say red, but, which one do we all agree on or think is going to look great with everything, and that does incorporate with the sets and the wardrobe and the makeup and also the actor as well too, right? Just kind of melding that all together. I hope
Mhm.
that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does. No, absolutely. When someone says red and you all agree on red, everybody's thinking potentially of a different red in their head. So you have to translate that into the unified vision.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just kind of like one example that, we can all kind of, and also the cinematographer, how they see a color and how they're going to light the color or the shape or whatever it is too, right? That also plays into the mood of everything.
That's so daunting to me. When I hear something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, how many I mean, I know that film and TV is like a lot of hurry up and wait and it's a lot of sitting around, but you're like, wow, how do you get anything done? Like, of course it takes 9 months to shoot a TV show, but you have to have a conversation about the color red.
Well, and that's just it too, right? It can take a really long time, but the more you have these conversations, the more you kind of learn, what to pick from, what not to pick from. Also just as a hairdresser, you kind of learn really quickly how to read people as well too, because that's also the client hairdresser relationship as well too. It's just, they have a vision. Are you interpreting it right as well too? So that
Mm.
skill also translates into this in job of mine as well too.
Yes, because many people understand the phenomenon of your hairstylist is also like your
Yeah.
therapist. So you have to have a really in tune emotional life and empathy link with
Yeah.
the people you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Naomi also mentioned music videos as being like a huge inspiration for her
Hmm.
in getting into makeup. And we asked her like what some of her favorite artists were or if any like particular music videos stand out from your childhood. What's your like be all end all like this is the pinnacle of art when you were younger or now?
That's so funny. I'm so glad that Naomi brought up music videos as well too. I think I mean this is a really popular video, but the Michael Jackson Thriller, I think had to been one of the first, well not one of the first, but the first to me anyways, where it turned a song into a short movie and because it was directed by was it John Landis? He's like a famous horror movie director.
That sounds right. We'll fact check.
But at the time, he had directed a lot of horror movies. So to see kind of those two worlds kind of meld together and turn this song into like a little mini, horror movie, it's just kind of like, wow. There was a lot of like Madonna. Madonna was really big when I was younger. Cyndi Lauper, Boy George, their band was called Culture Club back in the day. And there was just so many. And I guess it was just kind of like, I guess music videos was kind of a big thing for us as a child as well, too, because that was like a new genre of media. Prior to that, there was always kind of like variety shows like Soul Train and whatnot. And you kind of saw the new musicians playing on air live, but then turning these into like little mini movies. Also, that, our version of MTV is called Much Music in Canada. And so, we had access to that all of a sudden 24/7, like all the music videos all day long. Otherwise, it was just this half-hour show called Video Hits that we would watch after school. So I think maybe that's why, because Naomi and I are similar in age, maybe that's why it had such a big impact on us too, because it did incorporate all those things of fashion and music and a story at the same time together. And I still love music videos to this day, but I just feel like most artists don't really do that anymore. And we don't really have like a video channel, or I don't know we don't even have much music in Canada anymore. I don't know what's happening to MTV in the US, but
MTV doesn't basically do music at all in the US either, and hasn't for like many years.
I was gonna say our equivalent to that though is like, for example, on Carter's birthday a couple months ago, we just sat in the living room and YouTube playlist, like Carter hand cued multiple different Beyonce music videos and Kelly Clarkson music videos into our own playlist that we then watched for like 2 hours. But on YouTube. So it's not the same, but that's our new cultural language, I guess.
Yeah, or I guess TikTok. I mean, now like people just make their own videos with the music, not necessarily the artist. But
it's all short form content. That's true. It was interesting to hear you bring up that specific set of artists also, because those are all people who, when I think of as having like big, very textured hair, full of movement, like lush curl pattern, which is also, I think, for a lot of people, what the Percy Jackson show is also known for, like a really defined curl pattern
with movement.
Okay, I've been caught, all my inspiration.
Were those like hairstyles like particularly impactful for you? Like, or those things that you look back upon as having particular inspiring qualities or values?
Yeah, I suppose so. And actually, a lot of the villains in Percy Jackson in the first season and the second season, I always seem to find like a musician to kind of like base my inspiration on for the villains.
What rock star is Mrs. Dodds? I gotta know.
I don't know if necessarily she had a musician one. I'd have to kind of really think back now, because again, it does feel like I'd have to go back to my inspiration boards and
10 years ago
and have a look. But yeah, definitely, because they're so iconic looking and they have such like iconic looks. You kind of see a silhouette and you kind of see a shape and you know exactly who that person is or what kind of genre of music they are. It's like you see it and you just know it right away. You see David Bowie and you just know away, okay, glam rock, like that's just or you see, like big hair on a guy and it's long, it's like, okay, like heavy metal. Just kind of things like that, because they are just so iconic, right? That's kind of how they've branded themselves. So I think, hair can be super iconic and you can see a shape or a color or a style and just know immediately what you're looking at.
I am now thinking of that luscious wig on Megan Mullally for when she is Mrs. Dodds before she transforms.
Oh, yeah.
Will you tell us about creating that silhouette? Because now when I think about the image of her in that first episode, I think of the hair.
Oh, that's good. Thank you so much. Well, basically, we wanted the concept for Mrs. Dodds was that, we wanted her to look like a strict teacher, which is why we wanted something very kind of severe, nothing soft about her hairstyle at all. It was very stiff, very like structured, kind of how she is as well. but also familiar in the sense that, it is kind of a classic hairstyle that you kind of immediately just think, okay, that is somebody of like authority, or that is like, a principal, or, you know, somebody who's older and very strict,
Hmm. Hmm.
somebody that you kind of
Yeah.
want, like, you know, the opposite of, Mr. Bruner, who is very warm and welcoming. And then, you have the opposite. So we just kind of wanted to translate that into her look as well, too. And I mean, she did a great job acting the part as well, too, because in real life, like, she is just an absolute sweetheart. Like, if you saw her at the end of the hall, you wouldn't turn around and walk the other way.
I was gonna say, if I
Right?
saw a woman on the street with that wig on, I would turn around and walk the other way.
Right?
I would want nothing to do with that low bun.
No, exactly. But real Megan, she was such a doll. We had such a great time working with her, and super super nice. Yeah, I kind of wish that we lived closer to each other, because I think we'd go out for coffee all the time.
Wow. Would
Yeah.
love to know what Megan Mullally's coffee order is. Would totally not base my personality on that. You said you're like a big reader. Did you have any prior concept of Percy before landing into this universe?
I didn't, because it was a little bit, it came out after, kind of my youth. But my nephew, he did read the book. So I was familiar with the books because of him, but I personally hadn't read them. I hope nobody hates me for that.
Oh, no, no, no,
No,
no,
no,
no.
no.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I do like reading young adult novels. I just hadn't read that series. And I think because like that came out, um, I guess like the early kind of 2000s, I think. So I would have been in my 30s by then. So I was kind of, it wasn't really on my radar of books to be reading at that time.
Did it feel like there was an expectation that everybody read The Lightning Thief during the season 1 prep, or was it kind of like we need to have a little bit of distance from everybody looking at that text?
There was a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I did try reading the first novel, but at the same time, I also got the first 4 scripts of the first
Mm,
season, and I was mistakenly reading them kind of both simultaneously. But what I was realizing too is that there wasn't very much difference from the novel to the script. So I felt like if I just read the scripts, they were pretty much mirrored like the first, half of the book that I had already read. And when you're reading scripts that are episodic, things happen in a certain episode, and my brain has to remember what happens in each episode, so that when we're filming the episode, then I know exactly what happens. But if I was reading the book and the scripts at the same time, it just would have been too much crossover, and my brain bandwidth just doesn't work that way.
right.
So it was just easier, for me to just remember everything if I read the episodes. But they were almost verbatim, like almost exactly the same.
So when you first start reading those scripts, you say, okay, these 3 main actors have been cast. We need to create the sort of base looks for our 3 kids, and we want them to be as comfortable as possible because they're young, and we want them to, feel like themselves on set and everything. And they all have gorgeous hair. How do you go about creating the plan to take care of their hair and keep it the same throughout the whole season, or even the same throughout, like if you're shooting the same scene for 9 hours, how you make sure all of those curls look the same for 9 hours?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as far as like maintaining the length of the hair, we just keep a schedule. We have a calendar, like a haircut calendar. We try to keep them trimmed every 3 weeks, and then that kind of just maintains their hair length level. As far as maintaining the curls on set, that can be really challenging because the kids also, because they're minors, they can only work X amount of hours a day, and that includes everything. That includes their schooling, because they still have to continue to go to school. It includes their rehearsals, the actual shooting. It includes their lunch breaks and any other kind of breaks that they have, stunt rehearsals. It's a lot to cram into I think it's like a 9 or 10 hour day that they're allowed to work. So it can be really challenging. And there was a lot of like running around and chasing them as they're going from, say from set to school and from school back to rehearsal.
Hairspray.
Yeah, exactly. Really trying to use really good products so that their hair just maintains the curls. And also just giving them a really good proper haircut also helps just maintain the shape and the style as well too.
Wow, are we allowed to ask you, like, what is the product? I feel like the people are dying to know. What are the lines that you use on set?
We use so many curl products. The basis, I would say, just from the start of a good shampoo and a conditioner. Pretty much all the cast, we've given them, it's called AG Hair Care. It's a Canadian
Write
brand.
that down, everybody.
And they have a curl shampoo and a curl conditioner. And pretty much we've given it to all the cast and they loved it.
Carter's looking it up right now.
I'm looking this up right now. I'm going to try it.
Yeah. They also have a really great curl mousse. I use a lot of the Bumble and Bumble curl mousse as well too, which is great. Really good holds. I really like the Aveda Confixer, which was like a really light liquidy gel. That works really well. So even though a lot of the cast have curly hair, they all have different densities. So some people have a lot of it, some people have like really fine hair. So all these curl, like there isn't one magic curl product for everybody because some people have fine hair, some people have coarse curly hair. Sometimes we want the curls to look really perfect and sometimes we want them to look soft. So depending on each individual cast, and we'll have like different products that we use. Giovanni is another really great hair care line, and they have some really great gels and mousses for curly hair. They have some really great shampoos and conditioners as well. There's like moisturizing ones and hydrating biotin ones. The list can go on. Like there's just and there's a lot of different oils, hair oils and whatnot to just keep the hair moisturized. Yeah, there's a lot. We were packing up the trailer at the end of the season and we just had these like 2 giant bins of all these different curl products.
I could imagine this happening with skincare, but do the kids ever come in like, oh, I tried this new hair oil, like, can we use this thing? Or like, I heard about this product, can we try this? And then incorporate that into the routine?
Yes, we have actually, especially with Dior and Leah. They're the two that really like to kind of experiment more with different products and whatnot. And so sometimes they do come in and, they see something and they're like, hey, let's give this a try or let's give that a try. And yeah, we'll try it all out. And if it works, great. And if not, then okay, see ya. Yeah.
Do you also braid their hair on set or do they go somewhere else to get that done?
With Leah's braiding sessions, that takes about like 15 hours in total. And so that includes washing the hair and blow drying the hair because the hair has to be stretched for it to be braided. It's like, about an hour just washing our hair and washing and drying. And then the actual install can take up to about 12 hours. And so we'll usually split that over 2 days to get the whole head done because sitting for 18 hours over 1 day is too much. It's a lot of time. But those protective hairstyles do take a long time anyhow. And they can take even longer if the braids are even smaller.
We had asked last week about that transformation that Annabeth undergoes in the final episode where as she's leaving camp, she has a little bit of a different look on. Naomi shared with us how it's sort of representative of the fact that she's growing and changing. And this is a moment in her life where maybe she has a little bit more time to put on a little bit of makeup or do something a little bit different. And I'm wondering, did you guys have like a conversation like who's braiding her hair at camp? Is it the older girls? Is it somebody in the Aphrodite cabin? Did Mr. Brunner do it?
We did have this conversation at the very beginning when we were thinking about what kind of a hairstyle Annabeth would have. And I felt like her being in braids was a really great way for her to wear her hair, especially if, she was going out on this quest. She's also doing all these exercises and training at the camp. It's just a great way to just kind of have it out of the way, yet still look feminine. And we kind of came up with this backstory that there were other kids at the camp that know how to do these kinds of things, because I think just in real life, in the African American community, a lot of, young girls or families do braid their own hairs at home. Not everybody can go out to a salon. Some people live in a smaller town and there always isn't necessarily somebody who knows how to, so they kind of teach themselves. So that was kind of the concept, is that it was like Camp Half Blood already is a place of community for these kids, and it's just one more thing that they do for each other.
Absolutely. Because Annabeth, that's been her home since she was 7 years old. So
Yeah.
someone is absolutely taking care of her there.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's, other, big sister types, I suppose, kind of teaching her, doing it for her. So that was kind of the backstory that we kind of came up with.
I wanted to ask you, those being sort of the main trio hairstyles and the things you have to keep track of, and that big calendar of haircuts and everything. And then on top of that kind of maintenance of the main cast, you oversee extras. And what comes to mind for me for season 1 is the Lotus Hotel and Casino, where there's hundreds and hundreds of extras and you're doing all kinds of period hairstyles and all sorts of things. Will you tell us a little bit about that? Would you say that was like the biggest challenge of season 1?
I don't know if it was the biggest challenge, but it definitely was a challenge for sure. Thankfully, we had the time to prep everybody, prep all the wigs. The wardrobe also had to fit all these background actors as well too. So essentially, as they came in to get fitted for their outfit, I had a hair representative, and they would take a picture of them with their hair and their hair color, like take a hair color swatch. And then we kind of created this catalog of everybody that was going to be playing a role. And what role were they playing? Were they a casino dealer? Or were they actually a patron? Or are they a guest at the hotel? And so we would kind of go through these outfits and types of hair. And I would, with my team, kind of go through and think, okay, this lady is from the 70s, so she's got this really long bohemian style dress, so I think she should have like really long hair, like Cher, middle part, that kind of thing. If she had hair similar to that, or we had partial wigs or full wigs, and then we would pull something out and style it for that person, put their name on it. So it did take a while, but we did have the time to get all that into place, and it was really fun because I had a lot of extra people out on those days as well too. So it was just nice to see a lot of familiar faces and that I haven't worked with for a while. But it's also just, it's those kind of moments as a hairdresser that makes it kind of fun and exciting as well too. You're not just doing, I always reference like a cop show or a lawyer show where everybody's just kind of like neat and tidy.
Yeah.
And, as good as those, movies or TV shows can be, it can also be a little bit boring,
Boring.
because it's not challenging, right? So I think for me, like, even though it does seem like a challenge, I like and seek out those challenges because I do get bored very easily, and it's just nice to be able to do something different all the time.
Yeah.
Relatedly, if this didn't feel like the biggest challenge of season 1, like what was the biggest challenge, or were there other major candidates that came to mind when we brought
Tell
that
us
up?
about your greatest moment of suffering from season 1.
Oh my God, greatest moment of suffering. Oh, I can't remember that far back. And if it was really sufferable, I think I've like repressed it. I can't really think of like what would have been like super challenging. I would have to say, I think the biggest challenge for me was trying to figure out Medusa's hair.
Oh.
That was really challenging because I wanted to create a hairstyle for her that looked like snakes, but was also made of hair,
Mm-hmm.
but also needed a visual effects component where it needed to move as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was really challenging. And then also because of the outfit that she was wearing, it kind of had like a very kind of like a 1930s kind of a feel to it as well too.
Mhm.
And of course, she also had to wear this big hat so that it would cover her eyes with a veil so that she wouldn't be looking at people. So that, I would say, that was pretty challenging. So myself and Naomi and our special effects makeup artist Mike Fields, we all kind of worked together, and I pulled out some hair references. He actually sculpted that image into like a silicone cap, I guess you could say,
Oh,
that we
wow.
glued to her head, so that it did kind of resemble snakes, but it still looked like a hairdo. I mean, we didn't really get to see too much of it because the hat covered a lot of it, but
Right.
I would say that was for me the most challenging part because, there was conversation of, yeah, using hair, but then hair, like it wouldn't slither or move the way it needed to for that visual effects component transition. So it had to be something that was a little bit more solid. So that was, I would have to say that was probably really challenging, but I think it worked out
Yeah.
in
That's
the
so
end.
I was thinking when we were thinking about what to talk to you about, I was wondering about Medusa, but I was like, oh, that was probably just a visual effects thing, like probably didn't have anything to do with actual hair.
Mm-hmm.
Foolish me, you actually designed that hair and then they did the visual effects on top of that. Like you designed what ended up becoming like the VFX work.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
so cool.
so even though there wasn't like a piece of hair in sight, it still, I still had a part in it. And I guess that's kind of going back to the collaborative
Hmm.
aspect of
Hmm.
this job. That's what's kind of really cool about this is because it's, we end up with this problem, which isn't really a problem, but it kind of is a problem because we're trying to find a solution. It takes, three of us to come up with how the end result is going to be. And it took a lot of conversations as well too, because we're like, well, was her hair going to be down? Was it going to be up? Was it going, how
Hmm.
was it going to look? But in the end, I think we decided to have it all tucked up so that, every now and then a little snake head kind of poked out.
Yeah.
Once the hair is down, did you also come up with the design for once it was sort of unleashed and the hat was off and she was fully herself?
That was all part of that was actually the visual effect component, because those artists have different limitations of what they can do with the snakes, and that's like an entirely different conversation and budget because it's very expensive. All the visual stuff is so expensive, and then speaking of collaboration, there's obviously like hundreds of artists that are also working in that visual effect component of making all those snakes move because there's all these different layers that get all melded together, and there's, I don't know how many people working on each layer.
So when people are sitting here like, oh, we're in a Percy Jackson drought, how are we going to survive until the second season comes out? Please think about every individual VFX artist who is animating a single snake right now
Yeah.
for season 2. Or a single tooth on Charybdis or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, lots of post happening right now.
Was that your favorite look from season one?
I think one of my favorite looks was also Helena's character, which we didn't get to see as much as I would have liked to, but again, very, very collaborative. And even though there wasn't really any hair involved,
Just bark and moss.
it was bark and moss, but I did create and build the headpiece that
Oh,
went onto
yeah.
her head. And again, that was, another collaborative effort of wardrobe, makeup effects, also visual effects, set deck. They were also
Mm.
involved because they chose the tree in the forest. So they do a location scout and they find this tree and they're like, that's the tree. That's the tree that she pops out of. So we get all these pictures and we get all these moss samples and bark samples and whatnot. We take them home back to the studio, get into our little workshops, and collectively we all start designing and creating like how do we make her look like a tree, but when she comes out, she also doesn't look like a tree. So that was, another really fun moment as well too, because even though it didn't have really anything to do with hair, per se, it was still something on her head that, I helped create. And that was really fun too. I really enjoyed that. And we went through like a few different R&Ds before we got to the final one. Also the satyrs, they were really fun to build as well too. Augustus, he was in the Lotus Hotel. I'm trying to remember everybody else that we would have
Okay,
had in there. I mean, we would have had Ares and
Hades.
Hades. Oh yeah, Hades. Hades was great. He was super
That's a
fun.
rock
Jade,
star.
Jade Duplass. Yeah, he was really fun.
That's a rock star silhouette for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, definitely. He had a rock star element of inspiration.
Whose purview is the satyr horns? Because that's on the top of a head, but it's also kind of like a prosthetic. Is that a joint hair and makeup?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
joint. It was a joint hair, makeup, special effects. Grover's horns are smaller, so those were a little bit easier to attach. But the older satyr horns, they're much heavier, and they have to be also on the side of the head, so that it's like now physics comes into play because how does
Yeah, those
you
those
know
Augustus horns were huge.
yeah, because he has to wear them. They have to be comfortable. They can't, and they also can't wiggle. We can't know that they're fake. Like we have to make them. We need to know that they're a part of his head. um, and that also involved a prop house who actually made the horns as well too. So it was another collaborative effort as well too. Yeah.
I'm starting to think your title should not be head of hair. It should be like head of the top of people's heads and whatever goes upon them, because that could be moss or
We could be
lichen
moss.
or
Yeah.
horns. Or
Horns,
hats, God forbid, hats. Now I'm
hats.
thinking about hats.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to talk to the costume. Every time someone wears a hat, that's another
Yeah.
conversation with the costume
Yeah.
department.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then we need to incorporate the hairstyle into the hat, make sure it fits under the hat and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
Annabeth's hat.
yes.
Making sure that the Yankees hat fits on the top of her head. Was that a whole
hmm
conversation?
It was a conversation. And so basically, because, the baseball hat technically doesn't actually fit over her whole head because there's just so much hair, and with the braids, it just kind of adds a
Mhm.
lot of dimension. So essentially, once the hat kind of touches her head, then the disappearance
Yeah.
action kind of works. So we don't actually physically see her putting the hat totally on. I mean, she can,
Ah.
but it's like super tight and looks really uncomfortable.
Which actually makes so much sense for the character and what that hat represents, because it is a
hmm
gift from her mom that has a lot of emotional baggage to make herself invisible. Of course, her mom will give her a hat that's uncomfortable for her to put on her head.
Yeah.
The helmets, too, like all of the capture the flag and.
Yeah. And the helmets as well too. So we had to find a hairstyle with Annabeth where the helmet would fit across as well too, because we didn't want the helmets to shift around and joggle because they had so much action running and sword fighting and whatnot. And so inside the helmet, there is this like, I don't know if you've ever worn like a construction hat, but on a construction hat, there's like this inside where it kind of like,
Yeah.
there's this
Or
tightening
like plastic
mechanism.
scaffolding that you can kind of
Yeah,
adjust and yeah.
exactly. So that kind of really helped keep the helmet secure on each of the performers' heads because, yeah, they were like running up these hills, running down, sword fighting, like falling into
Yeah.
water, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, we had to make sure that those did not fall off as well.
For people who haven't stalked Jeannie's IMDb page the way we have, Bugsy.
I know.
Bugsy said, "No one stalked my mother." I was just saying, you've worked on so many, like a variety of projects, like X-Men, Supernatural, which someone is going to ask you about on another Percy Jackson podcast, and I'll leave
Right.
that for them because we have some serious Supernatural fans that we know who
Okay.
are going to want to talk to you about that, and I'll leave that to them.
The other podcast that I did was for Supernatural, so
Our friends Emily and Phoebe at the Monster Donut podcast will be grilling you about Supernatural.
okay.
They recently ran around Vancouver just to like go to filming locations and be like, "Oh my god, they shot this scene of Supernatural here."
Oh my God, hilarious. Well, with 15 seasons, it covered a lot of ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, would you say that of all of these, varied projects you've worked on in TV and movies, is Percy Jackson one of the more complex, like large scale projects that you've worked on?
It is one of the bigger projects for sure, just on the scale of how cinematically it's shot, all the set builds, all the everything that's been put into it is more of a feature quality rather than a TV quality. So on that sense, then yes, some of these sets that we had on the first season was just amazing. Like even to me, walking in and just being like, wow. What? what? You guys built a tunnel of love. We built, the entire like amusement park, the fields of Asphodel, and then just all the pool work at the end of the season as well too. And then just the Lotus Hotel, like it was such a huge set. Like it actually did feel like the lobby and like the first floor of a hotel. Like it was pretty amazing. So in that sense, yes. And we had, we had a lot of background with all the different looks as well too. And not just at the Hotel Lotus, but also all the people lined up waiting to get into, hate. I'm sorry. I'm not for
Oh, you're
remembering
good.
anything.
The line for people to get into the underworld. I
Yes,
totally forgot about
exactly.
that too. That was tons of extras.
Yeah, and they all had very specific looks as well too, which were kind of comical, like there's like, like a lady um and with rollers, there was like a scuba diver. We had somebody who looked like they were burnt, on fire or whatnot. So that was kind of really fun as well too.
Yeah. I think we'd be remiss to not ask about one of the other projects that we saw on your IMDb page. I like Joyride a lot, and particularly
Oh,
the wig work on that project we have to ask about it. It must have been a lot of fun.
Joyride was so much fun. Oh my God, it was such a great movie. They're all four of our four main cast were all comedians as well too. So they're just hella funny, just regular everyday conversations. Then our writers were obviously comedian writers as well too. And so every scene they had these alternate lines, and each one of the four casts had a different comedic line to try out. And so we'd just be sitting there like laughing like all day long. Anyways, it was just so much fun. Working on a comedy is really good fun. And working on those wigs, to get them to look like they were in the K-pop band. That was super fun. And they had so much fun with it as well too. Beverly, she is the costume designer, and when she came up with the color scheme, of the outfits, and I just saw how brightly colored they were and how fun they were. And obviously, just trying to add a funny element of them being on the run and trying to be like undercover, but not really undercover. So I just thought it would be really funny if they were in these like super outlandish bright wigs, because it's the opposite of them trying to be undercover, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can spot them anywhere, these. But it was really fun. And then just them working on their own little music video was just hilarious as well too. I'm so glad you liked that one.
Everybody, if you haven't seen Joyride, you need to go see Joyride.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I think my sort of last question for you is that
Hmm.
when the kids, we were talking about these long days that they have, especially as minors, and they have to wake up really early in the morning, and you're seeing them like every single day, and you're probably the first or the second person that they see at 5 in the morning. How do you keep your trailer like a happy environment, a welcoming environment, get the energy going for the day? How do you keep up that vibe, especially for like young kids? They're not as young anymore, but especially back in
Yeah,
season one.
I think especially because I've worked with kids on a few different projects, and I think it's just so important to keep a kid's environment, for them. Like they might be here working, but they're still also children. And so it's really, yeah, so it's really important for me to keep a really nice light, environment for them, and not feel like they're at work. Like I still kind of want it to be like kind of fun playtime. And then that also just translates for us too. It's just like if it's a good working environment for us, then it'll be a good working environment for them. So usually, just have like some nice calming music in the morning. And just like having just kind of like lighthearted kind of conversations, nothing really super deep or anything, unless of course they want to talk about something super deep. But yeah, I think it's just really important to just keep them being kids, right? Like, there's no rush in growing up, and even though they're kind of in an adult world, it doesn't mean they have to be treated like they're in an adult world. And it's also just like the little things, like just celebrating all the holidays, like decorating for the holidays, or having like the special sweet treats or whatever, for Halloween or Easter and Christmas, and celebrating birthdays, making big deals out of birthdays and stuff like that. And just keeping it light that way, so like this season, Taylor Swift came into town, and so we decorated our trailer with like we made these giant friendship bracelets made out of
Oh,
pom poms, and we just stuck it outside our trailer. I mean, none of the cast are huge Taylor Swift fans, but it's just like whatever. She's in town.
you have to have a reason to decorate.
So just silly things like that, right? And then it just kind of keeps everybody kind of a little bit young at heart as well, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Before
Yeah.
we let you go, do you have any advice for people who are interested in hair and working on the top of people's heads?
Practice makes perfect. That's what I would say. Going to hair school, you kind of just learn the basics. And obviously, some people just have a natural talent for it as well too. But just keep practicing. Find all your friends and family and give them all the haircuts and all the colors and everything that they'll let you do, because just practice makes perfect. And it can be pretty nerve-wracking, being a hairdresser. When I first started, I was so nervous to cut somebody's hair for the first time, because you can ruin somebody really fast, or you
Yeah,
can
you can.
or
Yeah,
you
it's true.
or or you can make them too, right? But yeah, just getting all that out, and just the more you practice, the more confident, you become, and then with confidence and everything else just kind of comes in line. And then talk to people, just get it out there, if that's something that you really want to do, and just take all the different opportunities that come to you. And one small job could lead to so many other things. So you just never know who you're going to meet. And in this industry, it's all about networking and who you know.
Yeah.
So
Without spoiling anything, what are you most excited for people to see in season 2? You're like hair.
hair, all the hair.
Hairstyles.
Yeah, everything on top of people's heads.
Heads. Hats. You're going to see hats.
Yeah. I think there's so many wonderful characters that we got to build, this year. So I'm really looking forward to everybody seeing all the new characters, and obviously the CC Spa. I know that's been on everybody's mind. So that'll be. I hope we're not hyping it up so much that people get disappointed. But
Oh, no. That's our job, actually. You don't have to worry about that.
but I think it's going to look great. I think both Percy and Annabeth, I think their transformations are going to be really fun. I think everybody's going to like them. And then just all the other characters, the Grey sisters, that was so much fun to
Yeah.
create. And then all the giants that we have in as well too. What else? And we have pirates.
We sure do.
Pirates
It's so
and
funny
giants
because
and
I'm like, am I
makeovers.
keeping this all away? I'm like, no, they've all read
It's
the
in the
book.
book.
So
Yay! Oh, we're so excited for the freaking Grey sisters. Say it
it's
again.
gonna be
Grey
fun.
sisters. It's our favorite part
Grey
of season 2.
sisters. Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Really
and the
looking forward to it.
undead on the ironclad.
Yeah, Dior's
They were
crew.
they were so much fun to work with as well too. Yeah. It's all great. This season is, kind of in my opinion, I think it is going to be better than the first one. There's just so many more elements, so many more people introduced. We also get to meet Talia for real as well. So that's really cool. So I think it's a really exciting season. I'm looking forward to seeing it myself too. And I was there every day for the last 8 months.
Talk about rock star hair. We can't wait to have a conversation with you about Thalia in the future. That's going to be
Yes,
really exciting to talk about
yes,
the
yes.
design for that character. Well, thank you so much, Jeannie, for joining us. And if anyone wants to keep up with you, they can follow you at Jeannie Chow Hair, right? On Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, follow Jeannie. Watch all of the amazing projects that she's been in. If you haven't seen Joyride, you have to go watch Joyride. Heretic was so cool. I loved watching Heretic. I have not stopped thinking about that movie for
That
months.
was a good one, actually.
And the hair looks amazing.
Yay!
Made me want to cut my bangs so bad.
Well, the next time you're up, I'll give you a bang trim.
Jeannie, make my life. Right, guys, we will actually do the Red Pyramid next week. So get excited for that. Get excited for season 2 of Percy Jackson. Everybody say thank you, Jeannie.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really a big pleasure talking to you both. Thank you.
Yes, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yay!
All right, bye, y'all.
Bye.